Survive and Advance on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Survive and Advance is brought to you by Replenishing Care, the future of sports medicine. To find out more about Replenishing Care and everything they offer, go to thegruelingtruth.net, click on the banner at the top of the page. I am your co-host for Survive and Advance, Mike Goodpaster. Right now I want to welcome in my other co-host. He is one of the greatest basketball players that ever lived. I can't say that with a straight face, but he is in the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame and a member of the 1981 national champion Indiana Hoosiers under Bobby Knight. Help me welcome to the show, Steve Risley.
Mike, can you get like one of those applause tapes?
For what?
And play that in the background?
I may get one where I may get a boo tape and just play that one.
A boo tape? I don't think anybody's going to boo me, but I don't, you know.
I don't know. I know a lot of people personally that would, but
would they? Oh well.
I'm just kidding. Everybody I know that knows you said they love you.
Yeah, right. You don't know many people that know me then.
No,
so.
I only know like 3.
Yeah, and most of those are the guys from Aurora High School that beat me. Of course, they all love me.
It's basically just your wife and your son, and they're all right with you. So what the hell?
No, I don't know about that either.
Well, sometimes they're all right with you.
But Mike, yesterday had to be an absolutely wonderful day for you.
Why? What'd I do?
And it ties right into today's topic that we're going to talk about today. One of your 2 favorite things in the NFL happened yesterday.
What, a coach got fired?
The coach got fired, and one of the 2 coaches you were just dying to see get fired got canned.
Oh, there's more than 2. That's why we're doing this show today.
There are 2. I know there are 2 on the top of your list, though, that you rant incessantly about. That is just a travesty that they're even receiving a paycheck from an NFL franchise.
Yeah,
and
Hugh
one
Jackson
of them is
got
now
fired.
gone.
I know, and the
amazing
got
thing, fired.
You know, the amazing thing is this: if you look at it, you could take like just a general NFL fan, probably make them the head coach of an NFL team and win more than 3 games in 3 years.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
My only fear is Hugh Jackson will end up back in Cincinnati.
Well, there's the other half of your equation right there that hasn't quite happened yet.
Yeah, but see, this is the scary part now because Mike Brown loves Hugh Jackson. So if he fires Marvin Lewis, he might hire Hugh Jackson. Wouldn't that be awesome for Bengal fans?
Out of the frying pan and into the fire.
Yeah.
But
that's what the Bengals do.
Today's topic, we're going to talk about and kind of critique all the coaches in the NFL and see who is safe, who is in jeopardy. God, that's a line right out of Dancing with the Stars last night. Today we'll reveal the stars who are in jeopardy of being eliminated. We'll call it Dancing with the Coaches. Call this episode Dancing with the Coaches.
Sure.
Somebody picks up on that play on words.
That's what we'll call it. We'll call it that.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to go through each coach, whether they should be fired, whether they should not be fired, and whether they will be fired. And we're going to start off with the AFC South, since Steve Risley's Indianapolis Colts reside in the NFC South. And when I look at the South, I think Bill O'Brien came into this year on the hot seat. I don't think he should have, because I think this is a guy, if you look at the teams he's taken to the playoffs and the quarterbacks those teams possessed, I think Bill O'Brien's done a really good job. But I do think his job will be in jeopardy if they don't win the division. But as bad as the AFC South is, he's going to win at least 9 or 10 games, which wins this division, Steve.
Well, he's faced a lot of injuries in his tenure as coach there, and O'Brien's been there. What? How long's O'Brien been?
He's been there.
He's been there
years.
Since 2014.
Yeah.
So he's got 4 years tenure. He's had a lot of injuries in and out. He's produced 3 9-win seasons with all those injuries. Transitioning with young players. That team's made itself over a couple times. They've had quarterback issues. Didn't they try Osweiler at one time? Weren't they part of the Osweiler system?
I think everybody's tried Brock Osweiler at one time.
Yeah, I think everybody has. The only people that
Brock
like Brock
Osweiler is like Ryan Fitzpatrick's bastard son.
I don't know. I wouldn't put Osweiler in Ryan Patrick.
Neither would I. That's why I said bastard son.
Bastard son, yeah. But I think Bill O'Brien is fine. I mean, like I said, three of the 4 seasons he's got 9 wins. And when you break down the quarterbacks they've gone through, the injuries he sustained, I mean, all the stars have been hurt at some point or another. Lost his running back. Who was a really good running back they had a couple of years ago?
I don't know. You're the one telling the story. Arian Foster.
Arian Foster, yeah. And I mean, I kept wanting to say Adrian Peterson.
And they've lost J.J. Watt for most of 2 seasons at one
point. Watt's always
out. Clowney, and just their quarterback situation's been a mess. I mean,
I'm actually, and they were the subject of a Hard Knocks a couple of years ago, and I kind of liked the way his coaching style. I thought he handled things good. I thought he was a good coach. So I think he's fine. I think Houston's the team to beat in that division, and they have been for the last 3 or 4 years. And I think they're going to be the team to beat again. They got 2-game lead on everybody right now, don't they?
Yeah, they're up 2 games at 5-3 to Titans. They're 3-4, so they're 2 games back. The Colts and the Jaguars are both 3-5, 2.5 games back, and that'll bring us to the Titans. Mike Vrabel. The Titans started off 3-1 this year, but I'll tell you, Mike Mularkey, I think, did a horrible job with the Titans, and I think it's showing right now. And Marcus Mariota doesn't seem like he's really progressed at all. But I think Vrabel is safe. I think he's a good football coach. He's willing to take a shot to win the game. And I think Vrabel should be safe, and I think he will be safe because this team has some issues. They need some help at wide receiver. A lot of drop balls with the Titans, but I think Vrabel should be safe. I think that he has the potential to turn out to be a good coach.
But this is one of your coaches here. Basically, he came from Ohio State, didn't he?
Well, he came from the New England Patriots.
Okay, via Ohio State at some point. So he's one of those guys who made his mark starting as a college coach.
I'm more of a Michigan fan, so I just call him Ohio State or the team down south.
Vrabel, I think he's finding a way to put himself in the in jeopardy category right now. I don't think he's quite there yet, but I think Tennessee's had enough down years now, and Mariota's not panned out. And I don't know if that's on him or not. Some of the questions you got to ask.
It can't be on Vrabel because he just got there. That's on Mularkey, and that's what happens when you get a defensive-minded coach or an offensive line coach who comes in with a team with a young quarterback. And we're going to go through. I mean, Hugh Jackson is an offensive coach who blew his, but of course his is because he couldn't get along with Todd Haley. But if you ask Ben Roethlisberger, he's a really hard guy to get along with. So we agree that Vrabel's safe, but things could change if all of a sudden they go into tank and go 6-10. Correct? Did you fall down? Did you better hit your little alert button thing, that I've fallen and I can't get up.
My dog knocked the earphones out of he jumped up on me and knocked the dadgum earphones
well, you know
out
why?
of my ears.
That's because last night your dog called me and said he could do a better job than you. And I said, hey, if you ever get a chance to get the headphones and give it a shot, I mean, you can do it. And
you make care what you wish for. He's going to start barking.
The only problem with your dog is
he's
been on the show before, and the only thing he says is rough. So
rough.
All right.
Well, maybe he says Vrabel's doing a rough job there. Maybe that's his way of putting it.
All right. Next up, Indianapolis Colts, Frank Reich. I think kind of like Vrabel, it looks like he's doing an all right job. I think it's really too early to make a judgment on Frank Reich, though.
Yeah, I mean, he comes from good pedigree, having been the offensive coordinator for the Eagles last year, obviously. But anybody that's going to have Andrew Luck, a healthy Andrew Luck playing under you, is going to look good, most likely. Or they're going to get put on the hot seat because they're not winning with him.
Yeah.
And I say to this right now, I think the Colts are one of the most – I mean, again, they're so far down, it's not saying they're one of the best teams. They're one of the most improving teams in the league right now. And it's all on Luck's shoulders, but maybe that relationship between Reich and Luck is developing into a nice one. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with Reich at this point. You can't blame him for anything.
Yeah, I would like to bring this up, too. I think right now Frank Reich could probably do a better job at quarterback than Brock Osweiler.
And you may be right there.
Okay. Next up,
you may be right.
The Jacksonville Jaguars, who had huge hopes this year, started off 2-0, dominated the New England Patriots. Everybody was freaking out, saying they're the team that's going to represent the AFC and finally end New England's dominance. Not so fast. And now they're 3-5, 1-5 in their last 6 games. Doug Marrone as their head coach. And Doug Marrone lost me when he was in Buffalo, and he did a good job, and he went 9-7.
Yeah.
And then he bailed on that team. He went looking for another job, couldn't find it for a year or two as a head coach at least. I'm not a big fan of Doug Marrone. I think Tom Coughlin ought to just take the team over and trade for Eli Manning.
Well, you know what? That's the question I have for you is how many of these coaches are in trouble because of GMs as opposed to their own ability?
Oh, there's a lot of them that are, but with Jacksonville, I mean, he's kind of screwed because of Blake Bortles. Like I said, I already didn't like him because I didn't like the stuff he pulled.
Is that on him or is that on the GM to keep putting faith in Bortles?
Yeah, it's got to be on the GM, but I didn't like Marrone before. I thought Marrone was a bad hire, so I'm going to stick with that and say I think he should be fired.
My argument to that is, and I believe Marrone's on the hot seat. I believe this is a very disappointing year for Jacksonville. We all thought this is a team that was going to contend for the Super Bowl at the beginning of the year. I mean, we didn't know if they were going to beat New England or, the Chargers are flying now. We'll get to them. But Marrone and Jacksonville's a team we thought was going to contend for a chance to play in the Super Bowl. Look at them now; they're in Colts territory right now.
Yeah,
I mean they're struggling. I mean, and right now I would say Indianapolis may beat them but then I wonder. Marrone did a heck of a job with them last year when Bortles was playing well. So can you put all that on Marrone? Do you have to put some of that on Coughlin or anybody for not being smart enough to go out and find yourself a good quarterback, trade for a good quarterback, know that that's the only piece of the puzzle that Jacksonville is probably missing right now to be a upper echelon AFC team.
Yeah, but in situations like this, you don't know if it's more the owner, hey, I gave all this guaranteed money, I want to see this guy play until I can't either. It could go both ways, and we're about to talk about a team with an owner like that, but we're going to transition to the AFC North, where we'll start off with the Cleveland Browns. Do you think Greg Williams should be fired, or do you think he's safe, Steve?
Greg Williams. Who's Greg Williams?
He's the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. I thought you were prepared for this show.
Oh, well, he's the interim head coach of the Cleveland Browns.
Well, he's the head coach because I guarantee you this, if all of a sudden they end up 7-9-1, he may keep the job.
I think after watching Hard Knocks, Cleveland needs to clean house.
Yeah.
They've got one coach on there that he's a big guy that drives the Maserati.
Oh, the fat offensive line coach that looks like a walrus with white hair?
I didn't want to say fat offensive line coach.
Why?
I didn't want to go there. Well, I know, but I mean, it's just that
truth.
They need to just wipe out their entire front office and start from scratch, and put a culture in place in the Cleveland. And they made the move by getting rid of Hugh Jackson and Todd and it was Haley or Henley? Haley, right? Haley, yeah. Todd Henley, Don Henley, Eagles fan.
I was going to say, you got the Eagles on the mind again.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, that team, they're halfway there. They got rid of a coach. I don't know how they invested that much time in him. He's been there 4 years, or well, he's been there 2 years, I guess. 3 years.
3 years. 3 wins. I mean, he's averaging a win a season, so what the hell? He doubled that this year. The bad thing is he gets fired when he's got the best start of a season that he's ever had because he was 5-1.
He slit his own throat. He slit his own throat there because the team actually started to look good, and now they're just not winning close games.
Oh, I mean, they're losing by that. They've been outscored 210 to 169, and we've already talked about it. Bad teams lose close games. Good teams win close games.
You're right. The closer the loss, the more you can look at the coaching as opposed to the players. I mean, if it's just a route, then your players aren't doing anything. Your players are out, man.
Well, yeah, but if it's a route, maybe your team's just not prepared because of the coach. And in the end, whatever happens is going to fall on the coach, which that'll bring us to the team in third place right now in the AFC North, the Baltimore Ravens, with Coach John Harbaugh.
Wait a minute. Let's finish with Cleveland real quick. Who did they bring in?
I already told you, Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator.
Oh, you want to hire him as a full-time coach?
He was already a full-time coach. He was the defensive coordinator, and now he's the
head coach. He's an interim head coach for the team. You keep him so you're keeping the same culture basically.
Well, this is the thing. It's really hard to bring a coach in right now because most of the other coaches have jobs.
All right, but let's say at the end of the year,
Well, see, I think this, though. I think the thing and why Greg Williams is the right hire this time, other than the fact that Todd Haley and Hugh Jackson are both basically clueless. You know, Jackson's too nice. Haley's too much of an ass. He fights with everybody. You can ask Big Ben about that. But the thing about Greg Williams, I don't know if he's really going to be a good head coach. But I think a guy like Greg Williams could change the culture because of this. I think the Cleveland Browns' biggest cultural problem is they're soft. They don't play hard all the time. And I think Greg Williams is an in-your-face coach that maybe can get these guys to play hard all the time. Now, I don't know if he's going to manage the clock right. I don't know if he's going to do all this stuff. But out of everybody on staff, he's probably the most logical choice to be able to make an impact quickly. Where if you get Todd Haley in there, he's an offensive coordinator.
He's gone. Haley's gone.
I know. But you had a choice here of Haley or Williams. They were going to fire whichever one they didn't keep. Because let's face it, Hugh Jackson's biggest mistake was bringing Todd Haley and Greg Williams to the staff because they're both guys that Haley has some experience as a head coach. Williams has aspirations to be a head coach. And he brought them in at a point where he'd won one game in 2 years. So, I mean, basically, he hired the two guys that were going to get to choose to replace him. If you remember, at the start of this season, I told you Hugh Jackson would be gone between weeks 4 and 8. And it's week 8, and he's gone. And, I mean, I think both of those guys were brought in, and Greg Williams got the job because he was the least moronic of the two choices.
Sure, for a temporary thing. Does Cleveland look at the Oklahoma coach and marry him back up with
I don't know if the Oklahoma coach would want to do it, though, because let's face it, at Oklahoma, he's probably making more money than the Cleveland Browns could ever pay him.
That's probably true. Yeah, he's probably got an Adidas shoe contract.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably making $5 to $8 million a year right now. He's got the shoe contracts. He's probably $10 to $15 million a year, and the Browns could pay.
And he's winning.
Yeah, and the Browns could pay that, but the thing is this. What's the safer job security? The Cleveland Browns or the Oklahoma Sooners? In the AFC North, the division we're talking about now, the Cleveland Browns have made the last 6 head coaching changes. 6 coaching changes. The Steelers, Bengals, and Ravens have not made a change. And in that time, there's been 6 new head coaches for the Cleveland Browns, which is why the Cleveland Browns are always in last place. And say what you want about Lewis, he should have been fired. I think Tomlin should have been fired. I think the best coach in this division by far is John Harbaugh. I just have a feeling that if they go 7-9 or 8-8, the Ravens may fire him just to make a change. If they do, that's the perfect guy for the Cleveland Browns.
I think Harbaugh's in jeopardy.
Yeah, and the thing is this, though. If I'm Harbaugh, I don't really care because I'm going to get a job immediately, probably making twice as much money.
Yeah,
and I'm telling you, if I'm the Bengals or the Browns, I would grab John Harbaugh in a minute if he became available.
Yeah, he's been there since 2008, so he's got 10 years with the Ravens.
Yes, he does. I thought you were going to say something like that, but all right. I think Harbaugh should be safe, but I could see it going south.
I think he's in jeopardy.
I mean, the scary thing about it is they've outscored their opponents by 60 points, and they're 4-4. Next up, that brings us to the Cincinnati Bengals. Marvin Lewis should be fired. There's no debate about that. I don't care if he wins the Super Bowl this year. I want him to fire him.
Well, so tell me, how has he lasted since 2003?
He's got an owner that wants a puppet. We'll talk about an owner that wants a puppet in the NFC East in a little bit also. And when the owner wants a puppet and he's got a puppet, why get rid of him? And I think Marvin Lewis is a good coach. I think if Marvin Lewis had to do over again, he'd have probably got out of here about 10 years ago. So he could have got another job someplace where he'd have had a chance to win. But Marvin Lewis is a horrible game manager. He is no personality. He basically stands on the sideline and takes his ass whipping. His teams, every year, there's 1 or 2 games like the Kansas City 45-10 where they start getting beat and they just quit on him. So he keeps his job because of an inept owner.
And the GM, is Mike Brown the GM?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, that's one that probably falls more on the GM than the coach. Do you think, given a different GM, Lewis would be a good coach? Because I think this is his last year.
No, I don't think he would be a good coach, and I don't think this is anywhere near his last year. He's got
really,
another year on that contract, and Mike Brown don't like giving free money away.
Right, yeah, doesn't give free money away, yeah.
Yeah, and they're good enough to go 9-7 and possibly win this division because I don't think the division is very good. But all right, that brings us to the Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin, who I like to refer to as Marvin Lewis Light. I'm not a big Mike Tomlin fan. I think he's bad with the clock management. I think also, as you've seen this team get farther away from Bill Cowher, they have been less of a challenger. I don't think they've been a threat to upend the New England Patriots because, let's face it, they're not as good at quarterback and head coach as the Patriots are. And the Patriots find a way to win where Mike Tomlin's teams seem to get to a certain level, and then that's it. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what he does with the Le'Veon Bell thing. If Bell comes back, does he let him play? Because I think that's something, if he does that, I think he loses that entire team right now, Steve.
I like Tomlin. I think he's done it. I mean, he's got an aging team. I mean, Roethlisberger has got maybe a couple of years left in him.
He's got an aging quarterback. He doesn't have an aging team.
When you have an aging quarterback, you have pretty much an aging team because your team goes pretty much as your quarterback does.
Not really, because all you got to do is replace the quarterback and you'll be fine.
And I don't know, does Le'Veon Bell fall on his shoulders or the GM's shoulders?
Le'Veon Bell, to me, falls on Le'Veon Bell's shoulders. I mean, you can't just give him whatever the hell he wants. And the thing is this, it only falls on his if the GM could make him play him, but if I'm Mike Tomlin, I go with Jason Conner as my starting running back because I think he's going to lose at least half that locker room if he doesn't.
I think I'm in disagreement with you here. I think Tomlin has done a good job of turning that program around. They come out, they tie Cleveland in the first game. You know, they get themselves down and losing record, and they battle themselves back. And I think they're the best team in that division right now, and they're going to win that division.
Okay.
And Roethlisberger started to play well again. Tomlinson is kind of like Teflon. Nothing really sticks to him. He kind of does his own thing. He never shows a lot of emotion over there. Other than anger from stupid play.
All right, here's my thing, though, Steve. This is my point with him. You've got Ben Roethlisberger, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown.
Well, he doesn't have Le'Veon Bell. He's got old Ben Roethlisberger.
Wait a second. So he didn't have Le'Veon Bell the last 4 or 5 years. All right, so
he's got six division titles in 9 years.
He had, so who cares?
And a Super Bowl.
Who cares? Who cares? In the last 9 years, he's done nothing.
That's more than most.
The only thing that matters is winning a Super Bowl. He won a Super Bowl with Bill Cowher's team. Super Bowl 43, a couple years after Cowher. He went to 45 with a lot of Cowher's guys and lost. And from then on, they've been beaten. And the fact is this. They haven't sniffed a Super Bowl with the best running back in the game, the best wide receiver in the game, a Hall of Fame quarterback, and a really good offensive line. And they could not even get close to competing with the New England Patriots when you put them in a championship game situation, whether it's home or away. And in the end, you got to be able to win those games. You got to be at least be competitive. Yeah. I mean, they get blown out when they play the Patriots in the playoffs. They play them in the regular season, they can hang with them. Playoffs, different matter.
I don't buy that you want it with Bill Cowher's team unless you're John Gruden. Then I believe you want it with Tony Dungy's team.
No, see, that's crazy because Tony Dungy couldn't win it with Tony Dungy's team. Bill Cowher did win it with Bill Cowher's team.
No, but Tony Dungy built that team.
No, don't give me that. Don't give me that. I mean, Tony Dungy failed with that team. Tony Dungy couldn't get him to win the Super Bowl. And as soon as you switch out Tony Dungy, you give him John Gruden, who was an average coach at best, and they won the Super Bowl immediately. Bill Cowher took his team, Super Bowl 40, they won it. Super Bowl 43, 65% of the roster is the same, they win it again. Super Bowl 35, 40% of the roster is the same, they go there, but they lose. After that, roster's less than a third from then on out to zero, and he wins nothing. It's not the same situation because Bill Cowher's guys knew how to win a Super Bowl. Bill Cowher had won a Super Bowl. Tony Dungy, and see, this is the thing, Tony Dungy was not the GM on that team, was he?
No,
so
I don't believe so.
Team?
Yeah, well, I mean, Tony Dungy will have you believe he did.
But Tony Dungy
I'm not necessarily a Tony Dungy fan.
Tony Dungy is like the biggest hypocrite in the world. I mean,
he's the
one. The thing I'll never forget with him is when you had Michael Samms, was that his name, the gay football player, and Michael Samms, is going to play in the NFL, and they have Tony Dungy on, and they're interviewing him. I think it's on Sunday Night Football, and he said, "Well, I wouldn't want Michael Sam there because it would be too big of a distraction." And then Ray Rice, beats his wife in an elevator. Like a year later, and Tony Dungy's on there defending him, say, "Well, I'd have him on my team."
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's worse, being gay or beating your wife on an elevator? I don't agree with either one personally, but I know one doesn't really affect me or anything else around me, and the other one, that guy's a scumbag. And for anybody that may misunderstand, I think the scumbag is the guy that beats his wife on the elevator.
All right. I think Tom would say, I think he reestablished himself here so far this season. I think he started off, kind of got himself in a little bit of jeopardy because it appears the Steelers are going to have a really bad year. But I think now they're gradually improving game by game. They're doing what the Steelers do. By the end of the season, they're going to be playoff ready, and they're going to be a team that nobody in the playoffs wants to play. And you don't want to play them in Pittsburgh. So
I know. That was proven last year where the Jaguars beat them in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, nothing's perfect, Mike. Okay, it's
not
all
said
perfect.
Nobody wants to play them in Pittsburgh, but the fact is,
I would bet you
they lost in the playoffs in Pittsburgh.
Where would you rather go play at the end of this year? Would you rather go play at Pittsburgh or would you rather go play at Kansas City?
I'd rather go play at Pittsburgh.
Okay, all right. Well,
Kansas City's a better team. And also, by the way, I would like to bring up the fact that Kansas City beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh earlier this year.
Yeah, early in the year. Right. Right now, I'm telling you, the Steelers are one of the best.
Right now, too.
They're an improving team right now. They're getting stronger every week. They're looking better. Roethlisberger's stepping up his game.
They beat the freaking Cleveland Browns, and they beat the Cincinnati Bengals, who anytime the Pittsburgh Steelers fall or show up, they poop down both legs and give the game away. But you show me where they've beaten a legitimately really good football team, and you can't do that right now. Beating the Bengals and Browns does not mean you're back. It just means you're better than the Bengals and the Browns, which doesn't take a whole lot most years.
That's all you got to do, win your division. Tomlinson's safe. He's not going anywhere.
All you got to do is win your division. Well, then why do you rip on the Bengals? Because you always say, well, they can make the playoffs, but they can't win the division. Or they can't win a playoff game. What's the difference? Because you just said if you win your division, you did good.
Okay.
All right, I win again. Next up, we got the AFC West. The AFC West, we're going to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs first. Andy Reid, he's a good football coach. He's not a great coach, but he's a good coach that if he wins a Super Bowl or two, may get into that great Hall of Fame coach atmosphere. So I don't think there's any doubt Andy Reid's not going anywhere, and he shouldn't go anywhere right now.
No, he'll never win a Super Bowl either. Kansas City's not good enough to win a Super Bowl.
Never is a huge word. All right.
I know.
A team that I think could be the team that derails them are the L.A. Chargers, especially when they get Joey Bosa back. Anthony Lynn, I think, has done a really good job there. They're 5-2 right now. I think there's no doubt he's safe. Do you agree there, Steve?
I agree. I think the guy's done a really good job. It's a tough situation here because they're not drawn well. I mean, they're kind of the bastard stepchildren of L.A. right now. The whole franchise is kind of just out of sorts because they're not really playing. They don't feel like they're playing a home game. They're playing in a small stadium. I think he's done a great job of getting that team to focus on winning football games and leaving all the other ancillary crap outside. And I think he's going to be there for quite a while. And I think the Chargers at some point in time, the problem is can you keep their quarterback, what's his name?
Phillip Rivers.
Phillip Rivers. Healthy, or he's a tenured quarterback now. Can you keep him around long enough that the rest of the team can catch up to Rivers' ability?
Well,
which
I think that could be this year.
Yeah, it could be. You're right. I think the sleeper team in the AFC are the Chargers. They're kind of flying under the radar right now.
Super Bowl, which looked like a bad pick a few weeks ago, but
I think you may see them playing New England for the right to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and then you'll see one of them play the Saints for the right to lose the Super Bowl. Next up, the Denver Broncos.
Where is the Super Bowl this year?
I don't know. Don't you know? You did all the research.
No.
I just kind of rattled
I didn't research where the Super Bowl is.
Well, then why'd you ask the question? You were just trying to find me unprepared to make me look bad, Steve.
No. I wasn't
you
doing
were.
that because I don't know the answer either. What I'm saying is you could end up with
this
the
is
Chargers
like when
and the Rams.
Isaiah refused to pass you the ball in the low post just because he didn't like it and didn't want you to score.
I know. I think we could have scored more than 26 points together. Anyway, you could end up with the Chargers and the Rams, the whole LA Super Bowl. How about that? Has that ever happened before?
I don't think an all-LA Super Bowl has ever happened before. The only time it could have happened would have been the Rams and the Raiders when they were both in LA in the 80s and the early 90s. Next up, the Denver Broncos and Vance Joseph. I think he's going to get fired, and I think it's John Elway's fault. That simple. John Elway did some great things to make this team good a few years ago, but he has done some awful things that have really turned this into a not very good team, which is, you're John Elway, you're going to go out and get Case Keenum and think you're going to win the Super Bowl. You're nuts. And I don't see how you can blame Vance Joseph. Vance Joseph, I don't think is a very good coach anyways, so I think he's going to get fired before all's said and done.
I agree.
That's all you got to say. You're not going to pontificate on the point at all.
I don't need to talk over you. I mean, I think that they're a team that's sinking. Pardon?
I was done talking. You wouldn't have been.
No, I mean, I just said I agree. I can't add anything to what you're saying. I think the team is going in the wrong direction. I think it's time maybe for Elway to think about going back to his car dealerships and his pizza. So Papa John's, he's in with Peyton and the car dealerships and the pizza deal. Denver's going in the wrong direction entirely, and I don't think their ownership is going to appreciate it because that's a proud winning franchise, and they show flashes of brilliance, but there's no consistency to that team at all. And I think by the end of the year, the Broncos are looking for a new coach. Bring Shanahan back. Bring a Shanahan back to Denver.
Why? He sucks.
Any one of them.
Well, all Shanahans suck, but we'll get to that in a minute. He won back-to-back Super Bowls with John Elway, and in the next 20 years, he won one playoff game. Next up, we have the Oakland Raiders and Chucky, who I think was a bad hire. I would fire him, but it's not my $100 million. I think what they've done with Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper is they've made it abundantly clear that they're not worried about the Oakland fans. They're worried about what's going to happen 2 or 3 years from now in Vegas, which is fine. But I think he's made some good moves. I just think this, when you're betting on 5 first-round draft picks, if you don't nail with that team and the roster they've got, if you don't nail at least 4 out of the 5 as being all-pro players, I think you still got huge problems. And we know the Raiders, so they're going to go out and overspend on stuff that they don't need in free agency also.
Yeah, I don't think Gruden's in any jeopardy or danger for a long time.
Well, no,
I actually, the more I see what he's doing, it's tough to let some of those players go for the fans that are there today. But you bring up a good point that this is a Vegas team now. This really is just sitting in Oakland, waiting for a stadium to be built, and they're moving. So I think that the debut of the Las Vegas Raiders, or whatever they're going to be called, is 2 to 3 years away, and that gives him a chance to use all of his draft picks. I think Gruden's going to be fine. At first, I thought it was a joke, and I still don't know that he's that great of a coach. He's a great commentator. He talks a good game. We'll see. But anything that's happening to the Raiders right now, I just see as, like you said eloquently, just making a move to build a franchise for Las Vegas. And I think that's their long-range plan. They got a lot of draft picks. They can bring a lot of young talent, get a lot of excitement going in that city. And I think Gruden is going to win a Super Bowl again with the Raiders eventually.
You're out of your mind.
Okay.
4 to 5 years from now, he'll be back on TV. Next up, we've got the AFC East, the New England Patriots. I don't even think we need to talk about Bill Belichick. What do you mean, wow?
That was harsh.
On what? On you or John Gruden?
On me.
Oh,
tell me I'm an idiot.
You'll live with it. I didn't say you were an idiot.
Out of my opinion.
Did I say you're an idiot? Did I use the word idiot?
I don't know. I can't. We don't replay the tape. Yeah. Okay.
I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, Steve. I sincerely apologize.
You didn't hurt my feelings. Gruden's going to be
quit
fine.
whining.
All right.
You said he was going to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think he will.
Yeah, okay.
I think he's being shrewd. I think he's doing the right things. He's making the right moves. He's getting draft picks.
Yeah. Well, you know
Players get old.
How about this? Trade Derek Carr and Amari Cooper and get draft picks. And keep Khalil Mack.
Okay, but nobody wants Derek Carr. Derek Carr may be the most overrated quarterback in the NFL.
They do want him, and he's not the most overrated. He's a good quarterback. I mean, you got no offensive line. You got no wide receivers. You got no running game. 2 or 3 years ago when he got hurt, they were the number 1 seed when he got hurt. He was playing well with players around him. I don't think he's that bad, and I think that's really harsh on him. So Bill Belichick is safe. Let's go to the Miami Dolphins. I think Adam Gase should be fired. I think he sucks. I think the team's not nearly as good as their 4-4 record. And he's another one that is kind of the victim also of poor ownership and a lot of bad moves being made. But I don't think Adam Gase would succeed anywhere under any circumstances.
Well, I mean, he turned them around in 2016. They made a postseason appearance. I think his problem is not so much him. It's his ownership.
Oh, it's
his
him.
upper management.
He sucks. I mean, let's look at it. When he made the playoffs at 10-6, they beat exactly no teams with a winning record. I mean, they were struggling to beat everybody they beat, and they beat nobody that was any good. So I'm not going to read too much into that. But
I mean, coaches don't make their schedules. They inherit a schedule.
Yeah, but you know what?
I quit harping on the fact whether they're beating winning teams or losing teams.
Yeah,
they're winning games in the NFL.
It does matter.
We've talked about the mediocrity or parity in the NFL this year. Teams are beating everybody this year, regardless of what their records are. And we got teams that Jacksonville we thought was going to be a Super Bowl contender. They're freaking 3-5 or 4-5, whatever their record is. 3-5, and there's so much parity or
when your team
mediocrity.
Is 10-0 against 500 teams or less, and they are 0-6 against teams that are 500 or better than 500, you're probably not a very good team. And then they got blown out in the playoff game.
But then I think you putting your eggs in Brock Osweiler. I mean, every team in the NFL that's tried it has failed. I mean, it's a mistake. They should have kept
Adam Gase. They should have kept
Jay Cutler.
Oh, don't give me that. I'm not a big Brock Osweiler fan, but Brock Osweiler played a huge part in the Denver Broncos getting to the Super Bowl that Peyton Manning and the defense won them. I mean, he won, I think, 6 games that season.
He had a good stretch.
Yeah, he had a great stretch.
He got hot, and then people figured him out, and he became
Okay, tell me
obsolete.
When Jay Cutler had a great stretch to get his team to the Super Bowl.
He's got a hot wife.
So
at least you can see her in the stands.
Okay. So, once again, I win. Next up, the Buffalo Bills, Sean McDermott. If you watched this team last night, they've been outscored 200-87. He got them in the playoffs last year, a little bit of that Dolphins scenario we talked about. But the thing about this guy is, up until the last couple weeks, I didn't like him and I thought he should be fired. But the thing that stuck out to me last night is, number one, he has almost no talent on that football team. And number two is exactly how hard that football team plays for him, though. I mean, even when they get blown out, you never get the idea that they've quit on him. They went to Minnesota and won. They gave New England all they could handle for 3.5 quarters last night.
Right. And I was impressed. They played hard. I mean, and they were enthusiastic about playing last night. I watched a good part of the game last night until Dancing with the Stars came on.
Of course.
And, it's Halloween night on Dancing with the Stars. What do you got?
All right.
You got to watch that.
Okay.
So, but I do. I think Buffalo goes out and gives it an effort and plays hard. I like that in a coach. The first playoff appearance in 18 years for Buffalo. I say stick with the guy. They got a young quarterback. Develop him a few years, see if he pans out, and see if you can rebuild and put some players back on that team. The problem with Buffalo is if any team needs an indoor stadium, it's Buffalo.
No, they don't. Indoor stadiums are stupid. That's why the Colts are soft. Cincinnati and Indianapolis have the same weather climate, but at least Bengal fans aren't sissies when it comes to football games.
Cincinnati and Indianapolis do not have the same weather climate.
They don't have the same climate. They're like an hour and 10 minutes from each other.
It's always 10 degrees warmer in Cincinnati than it is in Indianapolis.
It was 59 below in a playoff game here one time, the coldest game in NFL history. The Colts, on the other hand, have to be nice and comfy in 72 degrees with no wind or no sun because basically people in Indianapolis are soft. People in Cincinnati are hardened by a police force that will shoot you just for the fun of it.
And that's why Pete Rose is your hero.
No, he's not. I think Pete Rose is the biggest scumbag that ever lived. Pete Rose is just below Adolf Hitler for me.
We're on Sean McDermott. We're on Sean McDermott.
No, we're not. We're off of Sean McDermott now. Now we're on to the New York Jets and Todd Bowles. And I like Todd Bowles.
He's one of the best coaches in the NFL.
I don't think so anymore, but I thought that until the last couple days. I've changed my mind. I think this. I think the clock management's a problem. I think this. I've got no problem with him staying there because I do think overall he's done a good job. The team he got to 2-6 2 years ago was a team that was not very talented, and he still had them on the edge of the playoffs. Last year they kind of fell apart. They were doing all right until about halfway through the season, which Josh McCown, their starting quarterback, got hurt. Now you've got Sam Darnold there, and I think this is a point where if you're going to keep him, you need to bring in a better offensive coordinator and a better quarterbacks coach to help develop Sam Darnold because it's not going to get done with the staff they got right now.
Yeah, that's a good question I have for you, since you're a coach and you coach in the pro level. How important is it for a young quarterback to kind of keep some continuity in developing that quarterback in the first 2 or 3 years with a coach? I mean, is it an important relationship to have, or is it okay to go ahead and, like what Cleveland's going to go through now?
Are they going to what Cleveland went through?
Keep changing systems for these guys. Is that a good thing or a bad thing to keep changing systems? Like, Bowles should stay with their quarterback, Darnold, and develop him and get him ready for the franchise under one system, and then once he's experienced enough, then change systems, or does it not matter if they get rid of Bowles and bring a new system in?
This is the thing, though. I think when I look at the Jets' offense, I think the system's bad. So it would be better, to maybe get a better system in there.
Change it right now?
Yeah, Jeremy Bates is the offensive coordinator. He's also the quarterback's coach. I just think it would be better situation. It would be a better situation if you brought an actual quarterback's coach in for the quarterback and you had a separate offensive coordinator. And the reason I say that is this. If I'm, the rookie quarterback who is maybe don't get something or doesn't understand anything right or doesn't agree with the way the plays are being called, well, my quarterback's coach is the guy calling the plays. If you've got a quarterback's coach in between him, you've got a buffer for the coordinator and the quarterback. You got kind of like a sounding board. You've got a go-between that can help figure this stuff out. And, maybe Sam Darnold is concerned about such and such with the offense. He tells the quarterback's coach. The quarterback's coach may just bring that up a couple days later to the offensive coordinator and not even tell him it was Sam Darnold's question, just to see if he could get a response to get things changed to the way Darnold wants. I think it's a bad idea to have a rookie quarterback and have the quarterback's coach and the offensive coordinator be the same man.
Same person. Okay. Bowles, though, I think is a guy like Harbaugh. If he's let go, he'll land on his feet real quickly.
I don't know. I mean, I hope the Jets didn't
really
ruin it for him because at least Harbaugh's got the Super Bowl. They won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So when you look at that right there sets him apart from everybody else to get another job. Bowles will get a job as a defensive coordinator quick as crap. But as a head coach, I don't know. I would think he would, but the fact that he's qualified to get a job means he probably won't. All right, let's transfer to the NFC, where we'll look at the NFC West first. And we'll start off with the Los Angeles Rams. I don't even think we need to talk about this. Sean McVay.
No. He's the darling of the NFL right now.
Yeah, I think with a team like the Cardinals and Steve Wilkes, I think it's a miracle with their talent level. They've won 2 games. I think that he is probably safe. They're going to give him another year. You agree with that?
Yeah, I agree.
Now, I do think it was a bad hire, and eventually he's going to get his ass fired. And if it was me, I'd fire him now because I never would have hired him. Next up, we got Kyle Shanahan.
How many years Fitzgerald have left? I mean, that's another team that's aging.
Oh, you take Fitzgerald away, then they don't win a game.
Yeah, exactly. And how many years does he have left? I mean, he's been in the league, 10, 12 years? He's been NFL Man of the Year like 11 in a row.
Dude, he's been in the NFL for probably 12, 13 years.
Yeah, no, he's a great player. I mean, he's a great player.
Super Bowl
first ballot Hall of Famer.
In what, 9? So
yeah, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he's a class act. I mean, he's total class act. But I think they're okay with their coach for another year or two. But I don't know if they're going to be able to build a franchise enough to win. And then I think he gets on the hot seat. But he's safe for now.
All right. Next up, we got the San Francisco 49ers and Kyle Shanahan. I thought this was a bad hire to begin with. I'd fire his ass. I don't like him. I just think that man I saw call the worst game in the history of Western civilization in the Super Bowl a couple years ago with a 28-3 lead, snapping the ball with 15, 20 seconds left on the play clock. I don't like him to begin with. I think this team's talent level is vastly overrated. I really like Jimmy Garoppolo. I thought signing McGlinchey or drafting McGlinchey with the 9th pick in the first round was a mistake. And I haven't seen a lot of 49ers football, but there's nothing to me that really says that I'm wrong on that. And then you look at them draft-wise, defensive end Solomon Thomas was a guy, if you listen to our draft show, I thought would be a bust. And I think he's been a bust. Their problem is this. Their first 2 or 3 rounds of draft picks have been the majority misses, even in the last 2 years. It's not all on Balky, who was the GM before. They have drafted well in the late rounds, getting like 5th rounder George Kittle, undrafted free agents such as Matt Breida, under-the-radar free agent pickups like receiver Marquise Goodwin, and high-priced free agencies like Kyle Juszczyk. But overall, I think this roster is still 2 years away from contending. And I'm not a big Kyle Shanahan fan.
Shanahan's future rides on Garoppolo. I mean, he was looking like a hero last year in the second half when Garoppolo came there and they started winning games. And now all of a sudden he's out and they're not winning games. So I think the obvious thing is that Shanahan has got to have a healthy Garoppolo to keep his job. Otherwise, they've invested their franchise money into Garoppolo, paying him the kind of money they're paying him. They're not going anywhere with him. But they came out and that marriage happened really quickly, and they started winning immediately, whether it was a fluke or not.
Yeah, but the thing is this. The only team they beat that was playing for anything was the Jaguars. And Garoppolo's stats in those games were like 7 touchdowns and 5 picks. Colin Kaepernick a couple years ago was 16 touchdowns, 4 picks.
Mike, you know better than anybody. When you're the Colts for the last 4 years, you go beat the Raiders, who are nothing. You're excited because your team won a game. Okay, you just don't care who you're playing. We got to win. And I think San Francisco had that mentality last year in the second half of the year. They didn't care who they were playing. The same with the Dolphins.
But it sure helped. It sure helped to play bad teams.
But
this is the problem.
All of Shanahan's success is falling on Garoppolo's shoulders.
As
goes Garoppolo, so will go Shanahan.
I can tell you
if they come back together next year and Garoppolo is healthy and comes back and they don't win, Shanahan's gone. He's going to be perennially on the hot seat because I don't think he's that good of a coach.
As a Bengals fan in the 90s and in late 70s, where they would invariably go 4-12, but 3 of those 4 wins would be in 3 of the last 4 games of the season, and everybody would get excited. The problem is it's fool's gold. It makes you believe that you've got something that you don't have. And the 49ers need a number 1 wide receiver. Their offensive line is a mess. And I hear Niner fans tell me, well, we got all kind of injuries. Everybody's got all kind of injuries. If you draft better, injuries don't hurt you as bad.
Well, Josh Gordon's going to be available real quick.
Why?
Well, he benched him last night.
No, they didn't.
He said they did.
He started.
No,
false report.
I thought they benched him.
He started. It was a bogus report.
Oh, like I said, I was watching Jason start, but all we were talking about was he was late to meetings, late to practice, and they were going to bench him. He was already in trouble with Belichick.
All I know is he started. So.
All right. Well, never mind that, Phil.
All right, let's go to the NFC East, where we will start off with the first place. I never thought I'd say this. Washington Redskins at 5-2. Bad division, but they're up a game and a half in that division over the Philadelphia Eagles, a couple of games over the Cowboys, and of course the Giants are no longer relevant. They're about like the Mets. They're done halfway through the season. When I look at this, I think Jay Gruden is a bad football coach, but obviously he's 5-2, so he's not going to get fired.
No. They're overachieving right now, and I think that makes Snyder happy. Yeah, he's not going anywhere.
All right.
I don't think they're not going to contend for anything, but they're winning. Like I said, they're going to win that division probably.
Oh no, they ain't going to win that division.
Who's going to win it? Pittsburgh or Philadelphia?
Yeah, Pittsburgh. Yeah. You love Mike Tomlin so much. You got Pittsburgh winning two divisions.
There are two Pennsylvania cities that start with a P. All right? Dadgummit. You have to remember, I'm 3 hours behind you out here. I just got up 2 hours ago.
About 130.
You've been up all day.
In IQ, too. Next up, we got the Philadelphia Eagles and Doug Peterson, who won the Super Bowl last year. But we know how Eagle fans are, so he better get to the playoffs this year. But I think the guy's a good football coach. He's done some questionable things this year so far, but I think that he is working with an offensive line that has obviously aged. Injuries in the backfield, the running game's not what it was. I still think they'll win 9 or 10 games and win this division. I may be nuts there, but either way, he should be safe. But he better make another run at the Super Bowl by next year, or he's going to be out of Philadelphia.
They're not going to make another run at the Super Bowl by next year, and the Super Bowl will buy you a couple of years of safety in the NFL. He's got 2 more years before he's got to worry about his job. But I think the Eagles are a one-shot deal. I don't think they're coming back. I think Wentz, to me, the more I see Wentz play, the less I am impressed by him.
Well,
I don't see the leadership there. That I don't see the stellar leadership on field that I thought I'd see out of him. And maybe because he's got to rebuild this year after missing most all of last year. Maybe that's it. Maybe he needs another year.
Just in his third year, and if you compare him to most other quarterbacks in their third year, he's worlds ahead of him. Jameis Winston's in his fourth.
Jameis Winston's not a quarterback. So don't even go down that road. So he's not even playing anymore. He's been benched.
Next up, we'll go with Pat Shurmur and the New York Giants. They're 1-7. And I'll tell you, if you go on Giants.com and just look at the picture of him, you just want to smack him. He looks like a goofy dude. But I think his play calling is bad. I think his choice of assistant coaches is worse. He's got Mike Shula as his offensive coordinator, which here's our nepotism again. You know, if you got a Shula on your staff, you got a guy that can't coach, but he had a dad that could. I think overall, I think the drafting for this team the last few years has been absolutely atrocious. And atrocious may be too nice of a word for what they've done. I think the drafting of Eric Flowers set them back a couple of years because that's the guy that should have been your tackle protecting, Eli's blind side. But I hate to say this because last year they hired McAdoo and fired him after a year. But I think Shurmur is gone after this year also.
Giants have got bigger problems than Pat Shurmur. They need to fire their owner.
You can't fire the owner, especially when I think it's still the Mara family, which is about the oldest they're the oldest family in the whole thing. So,
his daughters are actresses.
This is the thing. They need to get him out of there. They need to clean house, and I don't know. They've got players on offense. They just need an offensive line.
Again, we go back to Manning. I like Eli Manning. He's just a bad fit for him at this point in his career. Wait a second, though.
A team that can't block for you is a bad fit any time of your career.
Yeah, but he's if you watch Manning play, he's shell shocked out there.
Yeah, and that's the point, though. Everybody would be. Time. He spent 4 years getting his head caved in. And let's put it like this. If Eli Manning would have started his career with the Giants and had this offensive line, his career would have lasted 3 or 4 years. He'd have been considered a bust, and you'd have never seen him again. If you would have put Peyton Manning behind this offensive line his first 4 years, he'd have been out of the league in 3 or 4 years and considered a bust.
I don't think I can disagree with you there at all. So, I'd like to see Eli find a new home. And we talked earlier in the shows, Jacksonville would be a good fit. I'd love to see him go down to Jacksonville, finish out his career down there, and see what he could do with that team.
All right, next up,
but
we've got...
I believe Shermer's in jeopardy. But I think because the Marr family and the Giants are just going to be, they're searching, they're grasping at straws, looking for anything to put a winning team on the field. And I think that they'll take drastic measures out of panic mode rather than by sensibility.
All right, next up, we've got head coach Jerry Jones at the Dallas Cowboys. I think he needs to be fired.
I think Jones needs to be fired, which means his boy Jason Garrett's got to go with him.
Yeah, and I'm
amazed that Jason Garrett stayed as long as he has.
I think Jason Garrett
that's amazing to me.
Yeah, at least with Marvin Lewis, you can defend him by saying, well, they've made the playoffs 7 or 8 times. That's almost once every other year he's been there.
Yeah,
with Jason Garrett, you got a few playoff berths and very few wins also. So I think that he's got to go.
That's the biggest coaching enigma in the NFL, Jason Garrett. How that guy has survived with Jerry Jones of all people.
Yeah, but he's a yes man. It's the same reason. I don't think it's an enigma at all why Jason Garrett and Marvin Lewis have survived. It's because they are with the worst owners in football. But
you have a guy that meddles, and Jones that meddles so much, and you look at how he summarily dismissed Switzer, Jimmy Johnson.
Switzer stayed there longer than he should have too. He kept Chan Gailey there forever, and he failed. Dave Campo was horrible. He kept him there for 3 or 4 years of failing. He ran off Jimmy Johnson. I think he probably ran off Bill Parcells. He wants to be in charge, so he needs a guy that will let him do what he wants, and that's what. Jason
so he puts being in charge more important than winning.
Yes, so does Mike Brown.
Okay, all right.
Because they both think that they know more than everybody else, and they're wrong.
Jason Garrett, he needs to go this year if the Cowboys want to be relevant in this decade.
Yeah, but this is the problem. If he goes, chances are Jerry's just going to find another yes man, so it's going to be the same thing all over again because that's what's happened ever since he fired Jimmy Johnson. All right, let's go to the NFC North. We'll start off with Chicago Bears, who are in first place.
Hugh Jackson's available.
Okay, that would be a perfect fit, except for the fact that Hugh wins even less than Jason and Marvin. But let's go with Coach Nagy at the Bears. I think he's done a great job this year.
I think he did a great job. I like the Bears all of a sudden. I think he's turning it around. I think he's developing his quarterback into a good quarterback. They're an up-and-coming team. And I think in a few years, the Bears are going to be a team you got to deal with in that division, and the Packers are going to fall.
Well, I think what are you going to deal with them or not, it's going to depend on Mitch Trubisky, who I do think has played better this year, but I think a lot of that's going to fall there. Next, we got second place, the Minnesota Vikings with Mike Zimmer. They're 4-3-1. I think Zimmer is an outstanding coach. I think you going to answer your phone or what?
It says you were calling me.
It doesn't say that I was calling you.
It did. My computer's messed up. Yeah, go ahead. It said Mike Goodpaster. Call for Mike Goodpaster.
Yeah, whatever. All right. Then I think with the Vikings, I think Zimmer's done a good job. I think Zimmer could possibly get fired when this year's over. If they don't win this division, don't make the playoffs, I think he could be out. That may sound crazy,
I agree.
But it's the NFL. He should not be out. He should be the head coach of this team, especially if he was against giving Kirk Cousins $82 million because Kirk Cousins is just a fancier version of Ryan Fitzpatrick. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, they're coming off a 13-3 season, though, and they're not performing at that level now. I don't know. I think he's safe this year. I don't think they'll, after a 13-3 year and really being a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, but everybody expects you to be a Super Bowl team again, especially after you spend $82 million on a quarterback compared to Case Keenum taking you to within one step of the Super Bowl. So I'm just saying, if this team all of a sudden ends up 7-8-1, I think he could be out.
Yeah, sure. There's always that possibility, but I think basically he gets a 1-year pass at least. And if they start off next year the same way, then he's gone real quick.
All right. Next, we come to the Green Bay Packers and Mike McCarthy. He should just be fired.
Yeah, I'm amazed they kept him as long as they kept him. They've got arguably the best quarterback in the league next to Brady. I mean, take Brady out of the equation. The most heralded quarterback in the league, and they're not winning. They can't win. They don't, they're in jeopardy of not making the playoffs.
But they just win a bad division every year, and they get beat in the playoffs.
Right.
Next up, we go with Matt Patricia and the Detroit Lions. I think he's safe. I think he's done an all right job with them. To look at how bad they were the first week to now.
Yeah.
I still think he better get this turned around by next year, though, or he's going to have issues with maybe working at Walmart or CVS.
I agree. He's made the Lions fun to watch. I mean, I'm looking forward to the Thanksgiving Day game this year.
Right. Who do you play?
The Bears.
Okay.
I play the Bears every year.
Not every year.
Not every year, but I think they play the Bears.
They play them a lot, but not every year. Sometimes they play the Packers will play the Lions too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So there you go. Let's go to the NFC South, and I would say the Saints and Panthers coaches probably are safe. It's definitely the Saints coach. The questions to me, excuse me. My throat's getting dry. My questions would be the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think Dirk Cutter for the Buccaneers needs to be fired.
Well, again, I think a lot of that falls on Jameis Winston. I think they banked their franchise on him.
Well, Dirk Cutter is not a very good coach. So, I mean, you could make the comparison that the first year or two Jameis Winston was there, he was a lot better than he is now. So he's regressed under this leadership also.
And is that coaching? Sure. I think Quinn's in trouble.
That's all you have to say. All right. I thought we were talking about the Buccaneers, but then you started
Okay,
talking
well,
about...
Buccaneers, okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's all right. It's just when you said Quinn, I was thinking Dr. Quinn, medicine woman, because I wasn't expecting for you to talk about the Falcons yet.
Oh, my bad. Tampa Bay, as long as the team stays mediocre, I mean, your coaches are always in jeopardy of getting fired. Tampa Bay is not a contender in any way, shape, or form. They're an up-and-down football team. Here they are flipping quarterbacks again. They're going back with Ryan Fitzpatrick again as the starter.
Should. They never should have
left him. Well, they should have never left him.
Really? Really?
Yeah.
Let's go back and listen to the show, 2 or 3 weeks ago, where you and Anthony Servino were telling me I was nuts because I thought that Fitzpatrick was better.
I said they'd make the change because of public relations reasons. I didn't say it was the best move. I knew that move was going to come because he's their franchise player. And they look like idiots if they don't play their franchise player. So they went back to Winston, and look what happened.
Going back to him.
Well, now they do, sure. Hindsight's always 20/20. And now they're going back to Ryan Fitzpatrick. They look like idiots for doing that they ever left Ryan Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick has one bad game, one off game, which every quarterback in the NFL does occasionally. And then they bench him and they go back to a worse quarterback, and they look more stupid. So right now, you just say Fitzpatrick's our quarterback for the rest of the year. If Jameis wants to take his $50 million a year, whatever he's getting paid, which is $49.9 million too much, see ya. Jacksonville needs a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, again, I think you get that same boat where he's too good of an athlete to play quarterback. I think it's a liability when you have these athletes like Cam Newton and him and the guy in Houston. They're too good athletes. They outthink themselves.
You cannot throw Deshaun Watson in with them. Deshaun Watson's always
Deshaun Watson,
been more
I know.
of a pocket passer.
That's probably a bad addition into there. That's a bad. I take that back.
It's just like most people throw Russell Wilson in that conversation. Russell Wilson's a guy that only runs.
No, Russell Wilson doesn't fall in there. Yeah, but the other guys, Cam Newton would rather run the ball than throw the ball, and that's not his job. And he's so athletic and so talented as an athlete, it almost works against him in the position of quarterback. You want a Tom Brady sitting back there and doing what he's supposed to do. Run your offense, make passes, read defenses, be a leader, and not try and be the star athlete of the football team. Goff does a great job of that. He's got Todd Gurley. Let Todd Gurley run the ball. He stands back in his pocket and throws. So and I just think that Jameis Winston is just that kind of a guy. He wants to be a Cam Newton, and I think it's going to fail multiple times, more times than not, in the NFL when your quarterback is that good of an athlete.
All right, Steve, we're going to wrap it up for today because I need a drink.
We go through everybody?
Yeah, we went through everybody, I think. NFC South, West, East, North. Yeah, we got them, huh?
All right.
It's been an hour and 6 minutes, Steve. But when you get to talking to me, time flies because you have so much fun.
It does. It's fun.
But tonight, of course, you can watch the first college bowl rankings come out. Tomorrow, the topic of our show will be the first college bowl rankings. And, of course, I'm sure there'll be some stuff that can be highly questionable. So me and Steve will be back, or Steve and I will be back tomorrow to recap it and to explain to you what's wrong with it or what's right with it. You can hear.
We're only going to focus on what's wrong with it.
Well, not if they get it right. Maybe they'll get it right.
What's going to be wrong with it is UCF is going to come in about 8, 9, or 10.
Well, the biggest problem is this: I don't think UCF gets into top 10, and I think Alabama's number 1, and they still haven't played anybody.
Yeah. I think it's going to be wrong. I mean, UCF should be in the top 5. You can't ignore a team that goes undefeated for 2 years and not give them.
And they will. I think
they will. I know.
The only shot that UCF has legitimately is if they get ranked 8th or better tonight.
Yes. And
that ain't going to happen.
50-50 that happens. 50-50 it happens.
Yeah, I don't think it's 50-50 it happens. I think it's like 10% that they get in the top 8, if 10%. Yeah. They'll probably put freaking Texas in there with 2 losses over them.
I think the big thing here is you can count on this happening. Notre Dame will lose. Notre Dame will.
I think this. I think if Notre Dame's toughest game is the one at Northwestern this Saturday night. If they beat Northwestern, I think they'll finish it out. But
I think USC is a tough game for them too.
Northwestern's a handful. Northwestern's better than USC.
Yeah.
Northwestern's got Clayton Thurston, who I think is going to end up being an NFL quarterback. I don't know if he'll be a starter or not, but the kid's really talented. They've been hot as of late after getting off to a slow start to the season, and I think they're really well coached. And I think Northwestern's going to be a handful for Notre Dame. And I mean, up to this point,
I agree.
If they beat Northwestern, I think you can make the case that they've beaten Northwestern and Stanford and Virginia Tech, who are all better than anybody Alabama's played yet.
Yeah. Well, I think these are the things for UCF, and I'm just really wanting to see UCF get a chance. I wasn't that big on them last year, but they do it 2 years in a row. I'm big on them with different coaches.
Yeah.
I think that just says a lot to those kids.
That tells you how talented they are.
It tells you how talented they are, really, truly, that they can absorb a new system.
Because if you watch football on a Sunday afternoon, you'll see their top tight ends, a Cincinnati Bengal, their best linebacker is a Seattle Seahawk. So, I mean, the guys that left there last year, a fair amount of them got drafted in the NFL and are being successful right now. So, I think it's a program that if they can run the table, I think they should get a chance, but I don't think they will.
I think the other, and we're kind of stealing our thunder for tomorrow, but we'll end. I also think there's a question right now whether a Big Ten team is going to make the Final Four.
Well, yeah, it's a huge question because the Big Ten is
a huge question, right?
I think it's possible. Yeah. I think I saw the other day.
Very possible.
The West is being led by Northwestern. Iowa lost again. I think Northwestern's there. So what happens if Ohio State, or Michigan, who's already lost to Notre Dame, they beat Ohio State, go to the Big Ten championship game, and their competition is an 8-4 Northwestern.
Yeah,
it makes it really hard to justify getting in the top 4, especially since once you beat Ohio State a second time, Ohio State's probably not even going to be ranked in the top 10. So what you're going to be looking at is the best team you played was Notre Dame, and they beat you. And if you watched that game, which I'm sure you did, it wasn't as close as the final score of 24-17.
No, it was not. No.
Now, I do think it's possible that Michigan is one of the 4 best teams, but we also know that doesn't matter.
No. I think you could easily not have a Big Ten team in the Final Four.
Yeah, I think the Pac-12 will be missing a team also, which opens it up for, LSU beats Alabama. Alabama wins the SEC. They let Alabama in. Or Alabama loses the SEC. They'll still let Alabama in.
Yeah. Has Oklahoma lost yet?
Yeah.
They have. Okay. Well, they're rolling big time.
They're not really rolling because they lost, but.
Well.
I mean, the big killer for the Big 12 was Texas. Texas was up to number 6 in the AP rankings, and then they lose to what's probably the worst Oklahoma State of the last decade. Georgia got hammered by LSU, and I don't know why they didn't drop farther than what they did, because it wasn't like they lost a close game. I think it was like 31-16 or 35-16, but they keep them in anyways. And if you look right now at the top 10, you got Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, LSU. Michigan's number 5. So, yeah, a Big Ten team will get in if Michigan wins out.
Yeah, I tell you what, again, we're stealing our thunder for tomorrow. We need to shut this down and talk about it tomorrow. But if status quo stays as it is and Alabama, Clemson, and Notre Dame all stay undefeated, you got a problem. I mean, what do you do with that 4th spot?
What was that again? If who stays undefeated? Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame?
If Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame all stay undefeated, which is very likely they could do. I mean, they should. There's no reason. Alabama may face the toughest challenge of all 3 of those teams right at this point forward.
Well, so I think this is the scenario.
Clemson's
if
good.
Everything
I think Clemson's
falls,
the best team in the country.
I think if everything falls with people winning out that should, you would have Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, and Michigan. I think that if you had those 4 teams, I think the NCAA would be very pleased.
But, man, how do you overlook UCF? 2 years undefeated. How do you overlook them?
Well,
and call yourself legitimate. I mean, how do you – I know they will. I bet my heart they will. But how do you do that and say it's a legitimate ranking system?
Well, how about this? What if Kentucky wins the East by beating Georgia at home, which they could, and then upsets in Alabama in the SEC championship game?
Alabama still goes.
No, I don't think they do if they lose to Kentucky.
No, I agree with you, yeah.
Hard to justify that, but then Kentucky gets in.
No, Kentucky won't get in. Then UCF would get in. They'd take UCF over Kentucky any day.
Really? So you think UCF has a bigger fan base than Kentucky?
I think they have a record. They're 24-0.
But remember, to win the SEC, if Kentucky did that, they would have to be Georgia number 6 and Alabama number 1. It'd be impossible to keep them out.
No, it wouldn't. No,
it would. The team you should keep out then is who? Michigan. I mean, the thing is this: UCF to get in needs a lot of help. Because right now they're ranked number 9 by the AP. You need Ohio State to lose. Could happen. Oklahoma, Georgia, they could all lose. Michigan could lose.
Right.
LSU's going to lose. The problem is this, though. Alabama, Clemson, and Notre Dame, even with 1 loss, are not going to drop below UCF.
No.
So they need 2 losses. They need LSU to beat Alabama, and then they need Auburn to upset Bama. They need Northwestern to beat Notre Dame, USC to beat Notre Dame. The problem when you look at Clemson is Clemson, we don't know how good they are. They haven't played the greatest competition either. And the SEC or the ACC is not what it has been lately. But you did get a 41-7 over NC State. But if you look at the rest of their season, they're going to play Louisville, BC, Duke, South Carolina. Now, BC, Duke, South Carolina are all good teams, but I don't think there's much threat that Clemson loses that. And when you go to the ACC championship game, as down as the ACC is, I don't see them losing that game no matter who they're playing. So I think Clemson is almost a lock to get in right now.
Yeah, I agree. We should have this conversation tomorrow.
Well, we will. But tomorrow it'll have more basis in fact.
Right.
So
we'll have an understanding, yeah.
Make sure you check us out tomorrow, me and Steve Risley, on Survive in Advance. You can follow us on Twitter at Grilling Truth. You can go find our Facebook group page on, well, of course, Facebook. You look up The Grueling Truth. You can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.